Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Cabinet on 26th of May, Tuesday 26th of May 2020 at 5 p.m. Before we start, I'd just like to welcome you all. I hope you've all had a good Eid, those of you who are celebrating, and our listeners. Item 1, membership of the Cabinet. We've got no apologies. We've got a full Cabinet in attendance. Myself, Councillor Peter McBride, Councillor Viv Kendrick, Councillor Mus Khan, Councillor Carol Patterson, Councillor Graham Turner, Councillor Naheed Mather, Councillor Cathy Scott, and Councillor Rob Walker. If any members have any interests under item 2, please declare them and complete the form and hand them in back to us, the committee clerk. Item 3, admission of the public. We have 2 members of the public present, and they will be asking questions under public question time. Item 4, question by elected members. We've got Councillors Cooper, Lawson, Lucic, Hall and Taylor. So I'll take Councillor Cooper first. Andrew, do you want to ask the question?
Okay. Is it correct to say that many pupils returning to primary school will receive only 2 days education per week?
Councillor Carol Patterson, can I ask you to answer that question, please?
Yes, you can. Thank you, Councillor Cooper, for your question. I mean, firstly, can I just reiterate what I've previously said about our schools in Kirklees, is that they have truly gone above and beyond in helping our families in so many different ways, and we are incredibly proud of their response to the COVID-19 crisis. Together, we now face another huge challenge. We know that welcoming more children back into schools comes with many challenges, and the planning of how to achieve it is very complex and has been going on for many weeks as well. Schools are open and have been for 10 weeks, and they are now deciding how they can open their doors more widely to more children in line with government guidance. The government guidance did say that there should not be a rota system or a part-time system, though subsequent comments has suggested that there is obvious common sense and leeway to be had in that regard. And you will also notice or recognise that this is not time to take a one-size-fits-all approach, and our schools all face their own unique circumstances and challenges in the context of their individual settings. Different approaches are being taken, which is only right, and we recognise the huge amount of hard work that is taking place in every school, and we are committed to working alongside them to meet the challenges in a way that is safe to do so. Schools are still working on how to open, and we are expecting yet further guidance later this week, and we will know then how different schools are opening and what the answer to your question is, I'm afraid. So at the moment, I cannot tell you how many schools will actually be opening on a part-time basis.
Supplementary.
Supplementary, Andrew, yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm aware of a number of schools which are opening for pupils on the basis that they will receive 2 days a week education. So for the sake of 6-7 weeks, instead of 14 days education, instead of 35 days education, they'll more likely be getting 14 days education. And that's going to happen to a lot of schools. So my question would be really is it really worth it spending all this time when pupils are going to get so little actual education time, and when a lot of that time is not going to be dealing with the formal education that that they would expect normally? And so we're having this patchy approach. You say we're not having a one-size-fits-all approach. That means that different pupils in different parts of Kirklees will get a different sort of education. And surely that's not right. And surely it would be right for Kirklees to offer direction, as other local authorities have, to not open schools until September for full time?
Well, the answer is the sooner we get children into school, for however long it has to be to their benefit. And 2 days a week, if that's what it transpires for the rest of this term, it's still 2 days a week more than they would have otherwise. And I think you'll find that the education lost over that period of time is actually greater than the education that can be gained. So there has to be not just, and it isn't just benefits to their education and what their actual learning, the curriculum. I mean, it is social education as well. And then for many children, having been at home for all this time, they are not just missing friends, they're in great need to see other adults, other children, to be able to socialize, to be able to put some of their fears perhaps at rest. I mean, some children are really suffering mentally or with mental health issues from being at home. There are others also, unfortunately, who are at risk of abuse from being at home. And so every little bit that we can do to bring children back to some sort of normality is of benefit to them. Thank you.
If they're at risk of abuse, then that's something we ought to be dealing with through children's services, and by addressing that's the way that we deal with that issue. What I'm concerned about is obviously
a third supplementary.
Andrew, have you got another question?
Yeah, I guess I have. I mean, the concerns of teachers, I appreciate the concerns we all have for children, but I've had teachers contacting me who are very concerned about returning to school, who are not sure that that they've got PPE for when they may require it, who are not certain about the procedures that they have, and are quite anxious themselves. And I just wonder why some local authorities are actually giving direction and Kirklees isn't.
Well, if I start with the end of that question, Andrew, and say that very few local authorities are giving direction or appear to be giving direction. And I think you'll find that if you actually read the press release or whatever it is that they may have put out, the statement that's gone, you'll find that it's a lot more equivocal than that. Even Calderdale is not being so directive as to say thou shalt not open on the 1st of June, because it's up to schools, and academies and other schools will be doing their own thing as well. Andrew, you got another question?
No, I'll leave it at that.
Right, thank you. What I will do, because obviously we've only got 30 minutes for questions, what I will do is usually when questions are coming in, I'm taking them by alphabetical order. So what I'll do is I'll rotate them so everybody gets a fair chance, just in case we do go over 30 minutes. Next question from Councillor David Hall. David, have you got a question?
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. I was wondering if, I'm not sure which Cabinet member this should go to, but I wonder what steps Cabinet are taking to anticipate a probable rise in unemployment due to the ongoing crisis.
I'll take that, and then I might bring Peter in if need be. This afternoon, I was in a conference call with all West Yorkshire leaders. All 22 West Yorkshire leaders, all 22 Yorkshire leaders were present at that meeting. And one of the things that we discussed was with the Director General, Imran Mir, who works directly for Simon Clark and Robert Jenrick. And one of the things we were discussing was we know that unemployment is going to go up. And one of the things that is very, very clear at the moment is the people who have been furloughed till the end of June, many of them will not go back to their own jobs because they will be made redundant. And there'll be a massive shift in employment statistics. So what we are looking at is a short-term solution. The short-term solution will be a reactionary solution because we were all working towards a medium to long-term strategy based on what our plans are. But because we are in a situation where things are happening on a daily basis and we don't know how this is all going to pan out. The focus is that the government will be committed to a longer-term fiscal policy in terms of bailing local authorities out, along with local authorities. One thing is coming out very, very clearly, that local authorities will be a key player in driving this forward. So that's where we stand. In terms of what the numbers are and any further detail on that, I can't really tell you because I'm not familiar with that. But Peter, can I bring you in, because the part of the economic recovery falls under your remit, so you might have been briefed more than me at a local level. So Peter, do you want to come in, please? You're on mute, Peter. Peter, you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself. Have you got a? Can we mute from here? No.
Yeah. I don't think I can add very much to what you said, Shabir. I'll pick up the points that are made.
Right. Okay, fine. David, we got supplementary on that?
Yeah. Thank you ever so much for that. It's good to hear that there's a joined up approach and coordination with other councils on this, because I think it's becoming obvious now we're going to see an employment rate which is higher than we've seen for very many years, and it is a worry, of course, to the council, both in lost income and in the cost of extra services we might have to provide. So I think I'd say just thank you for that answer and go on to my next question, if that's okay with you, Leader.
That's fine, Councillor Hall. Next question, please.
Yeah, this is to do with a report which I saw in the press last week. It's an issue that the GMB raised, and it's concerning taxi firms in the contract of the council, and it's been alleged that some are not passing the money on to the drivers. This is to do with money we pay them for school transport, but at the moment they're delivering other services to do with the ongoing emergency. Have we any evidence in Kirklees that this is actually happening? And if so, what do we think might be the scale of the problem?
Yeah, I know the answer to that, but I'll let Councillor Carol Patterson answer that, because she's probably got more details on that than I have and more up-to-date position. Councillor Carol Patterson, school transport and GMB and the money that we're paying over to the taxi firms.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we are aware of this issue, and we are. We took a decision as cabinet the other week to actually make sure that we did pay for the school contracts, but we also, in doing that, we had a stipulation that they should pass on the payment to their taxi drivers. Various taxi drivers have been in touch to say that they're not receiving the payment, and I know a couple of cases where that has been sorted out, and I have also know of a couple of cases where actually they weren't entitled to the payment in the first place. So yes, we are aware, and where it is an issue, well, that it's an issue, and we're dealing with the cases as they arise. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, thanks Councillor Patterson for that answer. Just to add to that, David, for a bit more information, I think I've seen the same article that you saw referring to the GMB, and when that article was written and published, we were in the process of changing our approach and policy in terms of how much we pay to the contractors. So there might have been an overlap. Since then, I know that GMB have been in touch with us, and they appreciate that we've actually taken action. But like Councillor Patterson says, that there are still a few anomalies. This is public money. We will make sure that the public money goes to the people who actually deserve it, i.e. the taxi drivers. If the taxi drivers aren't getting this money, we have encouraged them to come forward, and we will take action, because the money should not be kept by the taxi firms. It should go to the people who actually deserve it, i.e. the drivers. Next question, Councillor Hall.
No, thank you. I haven't another question, but I have an apology that I have to leave the meeting in about half an hour, but I'll stay till then.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hall.
Thank you.
Next question is to next person on my list is Councillor Lawson. Councillor John Lawson, have you got a question, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I've got a series of questions. I'm just going to go through them quite quickly, and I shan't be asking any supplementaries, okay, just to try and speed things up. Excuse me. So with government giving the go-ahead to open markets from June the 1st, What steps are being taken in Kirklees to reopen our markets? And does this include the farmers' markets, such as the one in Cleckheaton?
Which cabinet member is that? Do you want to just indicate or message? Oh, Councillor Rob Walker, you put your hand up. I can see you, Rob. Rob, over to you.
Right, thanks very much, John, for that question. As you probably aware, the markets haven't completely closed down during this period. The food stalls in the markets have been open, well, at least some of them have, and there have been people using them during this period. With this new announcement, our market staff are looking into this, and through this week we'll be working on that, communicating with people in markets about the procedures for opening up next week. I'm not entirely sure what has happened with the farmers market that you refer to, but I will follow that up, and I will ask one of the officers to send you through some details in response to that. So sorry I can't answer, but I haven't got the full details.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Lawson, next question, please.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. In the event of a second wave of COVID-19, how will Council build on the financial assistance that it's already giving care homes, and roughly how much has already been given to those care homes? Thank you.
I'll bring Councillor Khan in, and then if need be, I might just add something. So, Mos, can I bring you in, please?
Hi. Yeah, good question. We raised the funds by the normal 5%, and with an additional 5% on top of that to support the care homes through this crisis. And also we've given care homes support and advice around various aspects, and we've also got a hardship fund, and where, you know, care homes differ in terms of their needs, and recently the government announced a new fund which has been tabled for cabinet today. So if you're staying, then I can talk about that later. What was the second part of the question? That's the funding.
And if there's another peak.
Oh, if there was a second wave.
Yeah.
If there was a second wave, I mean, we are overstretched at the moment, and to be honest, we're going through. We will get this next tranche of funding over the next 2 months, but I don't think it's going to be enough if there's a second peak to carry on, because the cost of PPE is, you know, in some cases it's rising. There's a high demand on PPE. There's costs related to it covering for agency staff. So if we have more staff, you know, in care homes, in isolation or ill or wherever, so those costs will rise. And also at the moment, given this crisis, it's put people off from putting their loved ones into care homes, and also, you know, the care homes are struggling to fill voids where, you know, unfortunate deaths have occurred. So it's a really difficult and dire situation at the moment in care homes.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you, Councillor Khan. John, next question.
Yeah, a couple of more quick questions. Could we have a quick update on how bins are operating? There seem to be still a few systematic areas of repeated misses of bins, and just how quickly those are being turned around. Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, nothing really to add to my report from Thursday's meeting. The bin collection, unlike in many other authorities, has carried on as normal right through this crisis, and that is thanks to all the staff who are working in the service. There have been a few problems. It may be useful if you could give me the details of those, and I will follow that up for you. Many councillors have contacted me over the last few weeks, and I've tried to work with them to sort out the problems and update them on any difficulties that have occurred. So just send me an email, John, and I'll try and sort it out.
Will do. I'll get those details to you. Do you want me to go on to the next question? Yeah.
Yes, please.
With the acquisition of the George Hotel and the plans to put a museum in there, I understand it's hold the ball, not kick the ball, which is good. What are the plans for the rest of the building? Because I understand that, you know, a museum, no matter how worthy, will only take up a small part of that building. Who else are we talking to get the rest of that building occupied?
I think there's an attempt to get the rest, well, part of the building developed as a hotel. I think developments so far are not not detailed. I really couldn't say how far we've got with that, but that is the intent at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Last question is, there seems to be a bit of confusion recently, but what would be Cabinet's advice to residents considering taking a long car journey?
Don't.
Try not to go to Durham.
Unless it's essential. That's my answer. Don't unless it's essential, and follow government guidance.
Thank you. That's all for me for my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Alex Lochik. Alex, are you there? Over to you, mate.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Someone literally just knocked on my door as you were saying that. I'm just. Can we defer to another member?
Travel 150 miles.
No, definitely not. No. Can I come back in the next turn?
Yes, if you want. So shall I move on to Councillor Taylor?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor, over to you.
Thanks, Shabir. You'll be pleased to know that one of my questions has already been answered, because I was going to ask about markets as well. So thanks, John. I'd like to ask a little bit about universities, our university, because what I'm picking up is concerns about the number of students who may possibly defer this year. We've seen Cambridge already saying they're going to put a lot of their courses and lectures and things online. So you've got students who are thinking that perhaps this is the time to take a gap year. Now, if they have places guaranteed for next year, that is going to put greater pressure on our students that will be coming through and sitting their A-levels next year as well. But also whether we'll have the same number of foreign students, because there is a large cohort of foreign students at Huddersfield University. And have we done any work yet or had any conversations on the impact on finances, not just for the university though, but also for us as a town and a council? So if we're going to have less students, what impact is that going to have on the local economy? But also, what impact is that going to have if there's going to be student accommodation that isn't occupied? So I just wonder if any thoughts been given to that yet.
Yeah, thanks. I'll answer it, and maybe I'll bring in Peter, who might have some more information. But firstly, this is an issue that has been discussed on a regular basis with the West Yorkshire leaders and the Combined Authority, because ourselves, Leeds have 2 universities, Bradford has 2 universities, and I'm sure Wakefield has the University Centre, and I'm sure Colin has its own impact in terms of what's happening. I'll take your points in reverse order. Firstly, about the accommodation. In terms of the accommodation, there's a big issue in terms of a lot of the accommodation that is offered, not just here but elsewhere as well across West Yorkshire. A lot of the firms that operate the accommodation have got loan finance, so there's a big issue there. So they are getting engaged with tapping into the government schemes, which are for anybody to apply, and there are loan schemes that firms can apply. The key issue initially was about access and accessibility, and how quickly the various letting companies were able to access loan finance. I hope that's improved. In terms of the universities themselves, there is inevitably going to be a massive impact on the universities themselves in terms of income and the footfall for us, and the wider economy, and how that actually comes into play, because a lot of the students that use our university also are a major contributor to our local economy, which drives our economy locally and again regionally. So there's a lot of work that's gone on in there, and this is the point I was making earlier on. There needs to be a very quick short-term solution, and this is where we're actually working with the Combined Authority. Susan Hinchcliffe, who is our learning and skills and adult education lead at the Combined Authority, who also chairs the Combined Authority, is doing a piece. is doing a piece of work. I'll bring in Peter in a minute. Is doing a piece of work across the region to understand what that means in terms of our income, our education, our universities, and the sustainability of them. At a local level, Peter, can I bring you in terms of what else we're doing regarding Huddersfield University specifically?
I don't know anything particularly about Huddersfield, but I think all universities will be worried about the fact that students, because the provision, at least in the first term, is going to be so limited, a lot of students are deferring till the following year, which is going to hit the intake for the coming given year. And I think the issue then is, how do you attract them into this particular coming academic year?
Yeah, I think that's the point I was making, Peter, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, John, you got another question?
Well, you'll be really pleased to know, Shabir, that I have a number of questions from Councillor Bolt that he's asked me if I can raise, because he's not allowed to ask member questions.
You're more than welcome.
So the first couple actually are for you, Shabir.
Yes.
So the first one was that he said that last week Kirklees hosted a virtual meeting of 200 education professionals.
Yes.
Now, to be honest, Carol's already answered part of this question, which was about what was the outcome in terms of school openings. But he then went on to say, if Kirklees can host a meeting for 200 education professionals, why is it incapable of providing access for the 69 elected members representing our communities and for members of the public to directly ask questions? The technology is clearly there, but we still aren't able to engage.
I think the answer is very, very simple. When you having a webinar, which is open to all and free for all, and the purpose of it is basically to get ideas and engage with similar minds, is very different to the rules and the regulations that have been stipulated by government in terms of how we can make sure democracy operates properly and correctly, and we make sure that we cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Let me give you an example. If a member of the council suddenly raises a point of order in terms of the operation of the council, the last thing we want is that council meeting ruled by our legal advisor to the council null and void. That will waste time for the council, time for the councillors, and it will not be appropriate to actually have a meeting under them circumstances. So although having a meeting or having a conference on Skype or any other social platform, electronic platform, is easy, to actually make sure we actually conform and comply to the letter of the law is a lot more difficult. So for example, the way voting takes place, the way apologies are recorded, the way the mayor conducts the meeting, the way all the numerous CPRs are actually implemented, and it is, believe me, just doing these meetings for the cabinet and various other meetings, it is so difficult to make sure that we actually comply to everything, because before each cabinet meeting I have a half an hour briefing in terms of the legalities of the meeting and how the meeting should proceed, and it is so difficult. And bearing in mind, we've got the mayor and the deputy mayor, at the same time you've got the leader of the council, you've got the holding executive account, and then at the same time you've got a number of questions coming out. We need to make sure that we have the council fully operational, be it virtually, and make sure we comply by law, because what we don't want is A, for a mockery to be made out of democracy, and B, not to do things properly. The anticipation is that hopefully by July we will get a council meeting up and ready.
So I mean, you know my views on this anyway, Shabir, yes, so let's not waste more time. I mean, I am literally reading out the questions that Councillor Boat would like to ask if he's able to attend.
I really understand that.
So the second one, again, it's addressed to you, Shabir. It said, having been made aware of the dangers to users of the Batley Greenway, where children on tandems and tag-alongs, I've no idea what a tag-along is, are left in the road whilst the adult has to dismount to walk around barriers, why has nothing been done to remove these barriers, which Kirklees were told in 2007 by Cycling England should not be used on sustainable travel routes?
Right, I'm glad you mentioned Batley, and if I was a leader just for Batley, I would not be sitting where I am. What I'll do is I'll look into that issue separately, because to be honest with you, that's a local ward issue, and I'll look into that. As a leader, I'd expect questions that are to do with the leadership and the strategic leadership of council, and that's my response to Martin. So it's not a response to you; it's my response to Martin. Martin, no, he's been around longer than you and I. He's more than welcome to email me or text me, which he does regularly, and we could have actually sorted that out, because I don't know the details of that. You know, if I did, I'd be lying. But I will look into that. Martin, John, next question.
Yeah. So these next couple of questions are for Nadine, if that's all right. Again, they're from Councillor Bolt. I'm just vocalising them.
Yes.
So the first one is, residents have reported high volume fly tipping on Paul Lane in the Dalton ward, blocking half of this essential access route for homes and businesses. How long will it take to clear, and do you still think there are no issues with fly tipping?
Nahid?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. There has been a lot of tweets over the weekend, especially since I think Sunday, and I have reported it, and I did get another email this morning from Councillor, another councillor in the ward. I have reported it. I'm awaiting a response. And fly tipping is an issue, but not necessarily an issue that Martin believes it is. He thinks we're hiding that it's the fly tipping has gone up, and when I said last time it hasn't, he doesn't seem to believe it, but it is an issue, and I'm hoping it should be dealt with. If it hasn't been yesterday, that it's been dealt with today. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I've got a couple more for you, Nadine. The next one, the creation of the Calder Valley Greenway included using a former rail line from Paul Lane to Bog Green Lane in the Dalton ward. The planning drawings show a 2-metre wide equestrian surface alongside the tarmac. This was never constructed. Given Kirklees' stance on enforcing planning with others, shouldn't it ensure its services abide by planning approvals, especially as Kirklees seeks to promote active travel?
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Once again, this was on Twitter, and I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the officers. If the permission was given, I don't seem to recall it's been within my own time. Yes, he is right. It is our aspirations and the government's aspiration about getting many more people actively walking and cycling. And if it is possible, of course, we'd be interested to look into ensuring that what was agreed is implemented, but at the moment I don't have the full details. I am looking into it. And ask Martin to talk to me direct rather than via Twitter.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I've got another one. So the next question, Councillor Mather was asked last week for details of projects and consultation in light of the huge £2 billion government funding pot available for active travel. She had no details last week. Meanwhile, other authorities pushed forward to seize their share of the money in West Yorkshire. Can we put forward our suggestions, such as improving safety on Bog Green Lane, Dalton ward, linking the Calder Valley Greenway and Mirfield, due to Labour grabbing the previous funding for Dewsbury, linking Mirfield to Dewsbury South by upgrading the bridleways and riverside paths, connecting the Calder Valley Greenway out to Waterloo in the Dalton ward by upgrading the towpath and footpath around the Gentry. Would she look at providing a safe multi-user path for walkers, cyclists and horse riders, avoiding the canal towpath between Bradley and Brighouse?
Nahid?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Once again, it's quite a detailed question which I needed to have had a conversation with Martin and with the officers. And of course, once again, I couldn't give the details because he never, whoever asked me the questions last week didn't give me those details. These are quite specific requests, and obviously I will be keen to discuss them with Martin, get him to give me a call or send me an email. I do reply.
Okay.
Thank you, Nahid.
And finally, he's just said, having highlighted the danger on roads in Kirklees, in some cases created and perpetuated by Kirklees, would she and the chief executive join him at a social distance at present on a cycle ride so that they are personally aware of what many residents have to endure daily? I'm not sure whether he requires you to wear lycra or not.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is that to me? Yes, thank you very much. And of course, I'd love to say yes, but without knowing the details and the safety of all those using our roads is paramount. And where it is possible, obviously we would want people to use our roads. So once again, please, let's have a conversation, and then we'll talk and make sure that we actually make a response which has health as a paramount measure.
Yeah, I'll feed back to Councillor Vote for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just one final one for Councillor Walker. Really, it was in last week's meeting. He was going to get me an update on chevrons on home moss, and I've not heard anything. So I'm just wondering whether, Rob, I mean, it was a long meeting. I fully understand if you've forgotten. I wouldn't mind if you did.
Rob, do you want to
pick it up for me?
No, I haven't forgotten. I sent an email straight after the meeting, and I've had a conversation with the officer involved. I wasn't sure that my feedback to you in the meeting was accurate, but it was. What's happened is that because of the fact the road is slipping, the signposts, the chevron signs, had to be taken down because they were literally sort of falling over as a result of the road moving. So they've been taken up and they will be replaced once the road is resurfaced. If that's going to take some time, it may be that if it's possible that they're going to be replaced on a temporary basis. But the officer I spoke to earlier this afternoon did say that she was going to send you a response so that you'll get the details. Hope that's okay.
Thanks, Rob. That's me done.
Right, thanks, John. I think the Nahid, what I would advise you to do is don't take your case from Twitter, because you mentioned Twitter a lot. I tweet, but I don't read what other people do because I ain't got time. Anyway, before we move on to item
Councillor Pandock, can I ask you mine?
Oh, sorry, Alex. Yeah, yeah, my apologies. Alex, yeah, your turn.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption before.
No worries, no worries. Yeah.
I believe you hold the priority responsibility for public health at this time. So can I ask you, what measures will the council be taking to keep the high street safe when non-essential shops reopen on the 15th of June?
We were, funny you mentioned that, we were talking about this particular issue today with the Yorkshire leaders, because as you quite rightly said, the 1st of June we'll actually see a number of businesses and services reopen, and an announcement was made over the weekend in terms of non-essential shops that become open on the 15th of June, and the kind of thing that we'll be looking at is very similar to the social distancing that have been taking place in the thing that already open, like for example the supermarkets and the big building merchant stores. And the key driver will be to make sure that the organisations identify their risks, you know, how they manage queues, how they marshal people, how they do online shopping. So there's a lot of stuff that's been actually developed in detail. The Director General, who works in the civil service, responsible, He's called Imran Mir. He's one of the senior civil servants who's actually been assigned to this task. So guidance is actually being developed as we speak, and I'm hoping that that guidance will be flexible, but at the same time be practical and common sense. But the key priority will be to keep the public safe, to make sure that people don't fall in the chance of spreading the virus more widely. So anything that comes out of there will actually have to have that as a priority. I will, and my cabinet will actually, and I'm hoping the council as well will have that as a priority. But we wait and see what the guidance will look like. But one of the things I have to say is we have to come out of this in a safe way. And I welcome the fact that government has actually announced that non-essential services businesses will actually be operational in a couple of weeks' time. Next question, Alex.
Thank you. Next question to Councillor McBride. To help local businesses recover and help maintain distancing space on public transport, will the current suspension of car parking charges be continuing, and until what date?
Temporarily, it's carrying on, but I do know we are seriously considering reintroducing those charges. I haven't got a date, but it would be certainly within the next fortnight.
Okay, thank you. And can I ask Councillor Turner,
yes,
if we know when will the libraries and customer service centres reopen?
In a word, no. It's too early. We haven't had enough guidance from government. What I can assure you is that our chief librarian is involved in lots of conversation with national government. She's on many task force within national government. We will only open libraries when it is safe to do so. And in the meantime, we're looking at putting some interim measures in place around possibly looking at how we may be able to deliver more books through the WVS. So no, I can't give you a date. We are working on it, but no, there's no date at the moment.
Okay, thank you all very much. That's all from me.
Right, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is members of the public. But before I actually move on to that, I should have mentioned that we have had two urgent items on the agenda. One is local authority discretionary grants. We need to get that report approved very quickly because there's some more support that is available to businesses in our local area. And the other one is on social care. Which is basically a report that's going to be tabled. Mo's going to table that. And again, this is actually to support our social care sector. Both reports have been to Councillor Liz Mage, who's the chair of Scrutiny Management Committee, and she's okayed them that we don't need to take these through to scrutiny. So we'll take them items before we go into private session, which is under item 10. So we'll take them straight after item 9. So I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, we'll go on to item 5, question by members of the public. I think there's Gideon, who's got a number of questions, Gideon Richards, and there's Christine Hyde, who's got a few questions to myself and one to Councillor Carol Patterson. So we'll move on to Councillor Mather. Andrea, do you want to read the question out, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The first question is, it's coming up to the renewal period for parking permits. At the budget approval meeting by the council, there was to be a change of rules to allow electric vehicles to park in all council car parks for free and also to park on street for free as well. Can you confirm how this is to be implemented and when it will come into force?
Nahid? You're on mute, Nahid. You're on mute. Unmute yourself. Yes. Good.
Thank you. So this scheme is currently being developed for implementation, and we are not able to specify an exact date due to the ongoing disruption caused by COVID-19. But we intend to bring forward the scheme for launch when safe and appropriate to do so. Thank you.
Next question, Andrea, do you want to read it out, please, to Nahid again?
Thanks. Another question from Gideon Richards. Supplementary to my previous question, can you confirm what the parking permit arrangements will be for getting the extended parking, or will this be automatically built into this permit?
Thank you, Thank you. So the scheme will be managed through the council's current e-permit system. All the information regarding the use of the permit will be on the permit letter, and the information where the permit can be used will be printed on the permit, including the start and expiry date. Thank you.
Thank you. Next council to Councillor Peter McBride. Andrea, do you want to read the question, please?
Thanks. Questions from Gideon Richards. Can you confirm that all significant housing planning developments over, say, 25 houses going through planning or have just been recently approved will consider transport accessibility if another pandemic were to hit the public transport system, and what steps would need to be included in order to ensure that they do not impact on the Kirklees area net zero GHG targets?
All significant housing development proposals would consider transport accessibility, whether or not there was another pandemic. But in the light of our most recent experience, there has to be a fundamental rethink of all our transport criteria. Not to anticipate the unknowable, but to have a wider application of these long-term impacts, the long-term impacts of schemes and the long-term impacts of schemes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Peter McBride. Next question from Gideon, again to, Gideon's put the question in to Councillor Mather. Andrea, do you want to read that question out, please?
Thank you. Following the court judgment on Heathrow with regards to having developments that do not impact climate change commitments, what metrics are the council using to measure and avoid being legally challenged for decisions that could impact our net zero 2038 target?
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Once again, the National Planning Policy Framework is clear that the implications of climate change are a matter of for decision makers to take into account in regard to the material planning considerations. The Kirklees local plan remains in conformity with the National Planning Policy Framework in this regard. And in terms of decision making, Kirklees Council assesses the impact of the decisions using integrated impact assessment. The integrated impact assessment includes consideration of our equality impact covering the 9 protective characteristics, plus low income and underpaid carers, and environmental impact assessment across all 9 areas. These assessments gives us the opportunity to do things better by 1, taking evidence-based approach, using facts, data, information and feedback to inform our thinking. 2, explore ways to improve the services we provide. 3, removing or reducing negative impacts by flagging up issues that would be expensive or difficult to fix later. 4, considering options, outcomes and risks alongside costs and value for money. 5, increase transparency by showing how we make decisions. And finally, 6, moving beyond compliance to consider 2 characteristics outside of the statutory requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Nahid. Andrea, next question from Christine Hyde to myself. You'll just remind me of the question, please.
Yep. At the Cabinet meeting on the 1st of May, you said that you'll be including the cost for the community COVID-19 contact tracing and isolation in our estimates while the pandemic is ongoing. We hear directors of public health are responsible for contact tracing and quarantine with regard to care homes. Will both North and South Kirklees homes be selected in the same time frame, or will one area begin and a rolling programme across the areas ensue? Have the Department of Public Health had time to train and vet new employees or volunteers to help with this work? Are people being employed by the local authority or are volunteers being used? What level of DBS check is being used?
Very good question, Christine, but I wish I could actually provide you with a comprehensive answer from the local authority, because a lot of the things that you've highlighted is a direct roll down from central government, and you're quite right, it is central government that's taking lead on this, and I'll come on to that in a minute in terms of how we are going to try and take an initiative at local level. Firstly, the government test, track and trace programme is centralised, and that's part of the problem, because until you actually sort of like start to devolve that at local level, you won't get it right. The model that you were referring to is still in development, and you would have probably heard that one of our chief execs from West Yorkshire, Tom Reardon, he's actually been seconded on a part-time basis to actually help sort out how we test, track and trace. And you're probably also aware that Leeds City Council will be a pilot to actually roll this programme out, so that we can then start to learn some lessons and start to roll that out, hopefully, across West Yorkshire. Local authorities, from my view, are a key to success, and it's very, very early days to actually start to go into detail in terms of how everything that you've talked about in terms of DBS and training and development and getting people up to speed. It'll be a massive task, but just to reassure you, there is a memorandum of understanding that has been developed between various stakeholders. So in terms of funding, any impact on the local authority, from what I can see, that will be met by somebody. So we should not be out of pocket. In terms of the key partners and all the clinical services, they are all on board. We're working with Public Health England, the Health Protection Agency, clinical commissioning groups, sexual health, and conversations have been had across the system to make sure that we actually do try and make sure that we make the maximum impact. But like I said at the beginning, the system is the model hasn't been developed yet, so it's very much a wait and see game. But we will do everything we can to address every single issue that you've raised. Thanks very much. Can I have the next question, please?
Yeah, this question again is from Christine Hyde to yourself. At the Cabinet meeting on the 1st of May, you said that when we come out of this, we will need to make sure that the people who are already in poverty and or are now in an even worse situation should be helped in the best way we can. Nevertheless, we think it would be good to scrutinise the integrated care system's response to COVID-19 and build in measures to tackle the next stages of the response to make sure that the disproportionate damage COVID-19 is doing to both poor and Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities is ended now, not wait until we come out of this. Will you consider setting up virtual health scrutiny meetings and perhaps the joint West Yorkshire and Harrogate Health and Care Partnership to do the same?
Just to clarify, the role of the council is not to scrutinise the West Yorkshire and Harrogate Healthcare Partnership. We have a joint West Yorkshire Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee, whose role, I think, is to scrutinise health across West Yorkshire and on a co-terminosity basis, just to make that very, very clear. However, we're doing everything we can to make sure that the issues that you've highlighted in terms of making sure that the most vulnerable, the BAME communities, people in poverty, people who are actually living in deprived communities, don't get any worse off. The evidence is showing, and you're quite right, I did say that the situation will get a lot worse, and the data and the statistics around universal credit shows that. We have got record levels of families, individuals, people who are claiming universal credit. The situation, I believe, will get worse because once furloughing schemes over and done with, I mentioned earlier on, there'll be more people that will be unemployed, and it's very, very important that the short-term fixes are actually quick, that makes that impact to enable us to then start developing something that's a lot more stronger. Our conversation very early doors with Robert Jenrick, the MHCLG, were very, very clear. He said, to quote, that do whatever you need to do to make sure that you get out of this crisis, and they will fund us. However, the noises that are being made already is that the economy will be taking a priority. What that means is the Treasury will be taking a lead in terms of how they allocate the resources. The job for local government and job for us as a sector in local government is to actually convince the Treasury that by putting money into the people that we are talking about, into the people that are going to be most affected, and the deprived communities and the people who are vulnerable, if we don't invest in them, it will have an adverse impact on the economy. So there's a lot of things to do, and we are doing everything we can, not just as a local authority, as an individual local authority, but with our West Yorkshire and regional partners and players. And earlier on, we had a meeting with the 22 leaders in West Yorkshire, sorry, in Yorkshire, the whole of Yorkshire. That's a cross-party group, and we've agreed that we will actually do a joint letter to government. The resources we've identified, the funding gap, based on the last monitoring return, is £560 million short. So in total, there's an £860 million that we need to get us through the immediate crisis. Of that, around £300 million has been allocated, but there's still a funding gap of £560 million. So we're going to be writing to government across across Yorkshire, all leaders, and hopefully we'll start to make some movement, and the minister will take it seriously. Next question is to Councillor Carol Patterson from Christine Hyde. You want to repeat that question, please? Andrea.
Only when local contact tracing and quarantine measures are set up can we be confident that schools do not pose a threat to the community by spreading the virus, both among the children and staff. Studies have been done in France, and one which looked at a 5-week period in a school found that of the numbers in the school affected, 60% were lunchtime and other support staff. The children in school at present are a specialised cohort in small groups. Their parents are among those at greater risk of catching the virus. The NEU and other unions do not think their tests for a safe return to full-time education have been met, and private paid-for schools are not reopening. Please will you make sure all measures are put in place to safeguard the children who are already there and all their staff before opening schools?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Christine. I mean, yes, we will be making sure, or have made sure, that all measures are in place to safeguard children. That is absolutely paramount. We have had children in schools and staff for the last 10 weeks. And in that time, there has been no case of COVID-19 in any of our schools. The information that we have on the spread of the virus locally, which of course is a bit different to what you read nationally, that information, I'm more positive I should add, that information is going to be made available on a weekly basis to schools. So each week they can assess their risk assessment as to whether or not they should continue to stay open. Care has been taken over those 10 weeks, and it will continue to do so to minimise the risk. And the most important measure that is in place, or will be in place in schools, is infection control. There will be PPE available, but that will only be for very specific cases. In fact, it would be more of a hindrance than anything in schools. I mean, it's more likely to spread infection in schools if all staff and pupils were to use it. But the most important is washing your hands and cleaning surfaces, and children being kept in small groups so that they only have contact with one adult and the other children in that group. That's most important. And so things like staggered lunch breaks, staggered break times, staggered opening hours, all will mean that children will have that contact with no more than hopefully 15 people, other children in a group. Parents, of course, will be asked not to send their children to school if they're ill at all, and the same would apply to staff. And if an outbreak was to occur, then obviously we would close the school immediately. We are working closely with schools and helping them to complete those risk assessments, and we will be getting PPE and other equipment to them as necessary, and making sure that the schools are kept as clean as possible as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Christine to me. Do you want to just read the question, please, Andrea?
In terms of the Coronavirus Act 2020, it is likely that there will be a fallout, such as a predictable increase in domestic violence and also of other unintended consequences. Does the Cabinet intend to do a health inequalities assessment of the legislation?
Thank you for that question again, Christine. We as a council recognise the impact of COVID-19 will have not just an impact on domestic violence, but also on the most deprived and the people who are living in poverty, who are already affected by health inequalities. So it's actually a lot broader than just one particular group. Health inequalities is a priority for this council. It's always been a priority, but my fear is that this pandemic, once the crisis is through and we actually get through the other side, the health inequality will actually get worse. Already we are doing a lot of work in making sure that we support all the vulnerable groups that we talked about. Adult social care, children and any vulnerable person, we are making sure that we are prioritising them. There's helplines that have been developed, there's support that have been developed through our community team, there's food banks, there's a number of organisations that have suddenly cropped up that are doing marvellous work, tremendous work, community groups that just cropped out everywhere across Kirklees, and I pay respect to them that they're doing some fantastic work, which is easing the burden on local authorities. Also, we've had organisations that are engaged in medicine distribution, counselling, support, and again, the whole system has just come alive. It's a system through the voluntary and community sector that has actually taken a life of its own. However, all this is generated intelligence that we already had, and further intelligence. You're also aware of the residents who are part of the shielding programme. So already there's a lot of work that's going on from there. Shielding was a national initiative. I believe that the government probably got the mechanics wrong in terms of actions at local level. So we've had to step in and make sure that we actually providing that support to our most vulnerable, which are shielded people. There's more and more people that are going to that shielded list of the GPs, and we are working with them. Funding is a big issue, but we are working with a number of organisations to make sure that we actually back, or not a few months, a couple of months back, we actually increased allocation for ward budgets from 20,000 to 30,000. So there's a lot of good work that's going on already. But like I said, that the solution for the short term will be a massive piece of work that we have to do. It's what we then do in the medium term and the long term, and how we begin to change our strategies in terms of social care and children's services, because the most vulnerable groups and the people who are in poverty will be most adversely affected. It's how we support them and come out of this even stronger. Thank you very much. Next item is agenda item number 6, small affordable housing sites programme. Councillor Peter McBride, do you want to move this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. The 3 sites providing affordable rent for bungalows on small sites is significantly adding to the cost of development, which Housing England are recognising and subsidising. It ensures that there's a reasonable mix of housing types, of tenants, of variable age groups. It integrates older people with predominantly a younger age group. It enables older people to downsize, freeing up family housing, mixing age groups and housing types within one community. Council will have nomination rights on the first lettings on 50% of age groups within the larger population and affordability of all tenancies. That's my introduction, Chair.
Right, thank you, Peter. Have we got a seconder? Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Any comments or questions? I don't have any. Can we all agree to approve that report? Put your hands up. Oh, do we have to go through it? We have to vote it, don't we? Right, okay, we'll have to go through formal voting again. So, Andrea, can I ask you to take the roll call, please, to vote this report?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So, members, can you indicate for, against, or abstain, please? Councillor Pandor?
For.
Councillor Ken?
For. For.
Councillor Khan,
4.
Councillor Mather,
4.
Councillor McBride, Councillor McBride,
4.
Councillor Patterson,
4.
We are having some technical problems, so just bear with us. Are we still having technical problems? Have we got a fix? Do you wanna unsend and send?
Councillor Walker,
4.
Go back to
can
Cathy.
we,
We are having Cathy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so you for that report?
Yeah, 4. I've
Yeah.
typed it in writing as
Right,
well.
okay, no worries. Yeah, so we've sorted that out. Andrea, carry on.
and Councillor Turner.
4.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Move on to item 7, Huddersfield Southern Corridor Scheme Approval and Land Acquisition. Councillor Peter McBride to move this again.
Thank you, Chair. This is a major investment in the southern gateway to Huddersfield Town Centre. A key focus improvement to integrate from the university across the A62 Lockwood Road to St Thomas's Road. This is the most difficult cross thread the unity to Manchester Lockwood improves Lockwood Road, Albert Street and Lockwood Bar. The long road, the town to Manchester Road. The area covered in all the connections from Queensgate through Manchester Road and through directly south to Lockwood and Meltham and southeasterly to Home Perth. Mainly to southern Kirklees leading directly into town. So there's a huge complexity of roads covering roughly a quarter of the whole of the town centre, and it improves accesses on and freeing up gateways.
Thank you, Councillor Peter McBride, for that. Yeah. Is that? Can I second that report? My apologies because there's been some technical issues. Councillor Peter McBride's line was going on and off, so I think we got the gist of what you were saying. Before I bring other cabinet members in, John, do you want to say anything on this? John Lawson, Councillor John Lawson.
Thank you. Yes, just a brief question following on from last week's cabinet meeting. Really, I've noticed that I know this item is about acquisition, and that's fine. But in some of the detailed plans, that there is a special attention paid to cycling routes and pedestrianised routes. Are we hoping to enhance our approach to that post COVID, and are we hoping to widen cycle routes and have more segregated cycle routes within that plan? I know it's a vastly complicated plan at the moment, and to try and readjust those is very difficult, but I think we should be at least thinking about it at this stage. Thank you.
I think, John, I think wherever there is opportunities within this sort of from a traffic point of view, densely populated area, we've tried to open up the space to make that provision. It's not easy on the, well, you know how busy all of these roads are, but I think where possible, we've tried to improve access for cycling.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
John, you got another question?
No supplementary, thank you, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Naheed, you indicated to speak on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know the report is... Can you hear me?
Carry on.
I don't see the red box. Anyway, I was just going to...
No, you're not on yet. She's not in the red box, so she needs to be online. You need to send it again. We'll try again. We're having Naheed, we're having technical problems, and we can't seem to connect you so that you can go in the red box. And I want to move to the vote unless it's something substantive that you want to talk about.
It's
We can't seem to get you into the red box. We're having technical problems. We'll try again.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Okay. So I've seconded that. Shall we move to the vote?
Yeah.
Let's hope it works. So Andrea, do you want to take the roll call again, please?
Yeah, Councillor Pando.
For? We have a problem. We have a problem because it's not letting Viv go into the red box.
Should we just, do you want me to do it on audio? Do it on audio then?
Yeah, we'll do it on audio. So Viv, we won't get into the box, but we'll just have to go on audio.
Okay, Councillor Kendrick, thank you. Councillor Khan.
4.
Councillor Mather.
4.
Councillor McBride.
4.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Scott.
4.
Councillor Turner.
4.
Councillor Walker.
4.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, members, and I appreciate your patience, but we are at the mercy of IT, not our IT, but the broadband. It seems that there's a connectivity issue out there. A lot of people are probably at home using the broadband. The system's crashed. We need 5G. I didn't say that. Anyway, agenda item 8. Councillor Turner to present report and on the council's capital plan 2020-2021. Graham, over to you.
Okay, am I doing just audio or am I waiting for a red box?
Let's see if the red box works.
Nothing is yet.
All right. Oh no.
No. Oh, let's just do audio.
With nobody's in the red box now. But anyway, we can hear you.
It's fine. So, Chair, thanks. This is the annual report and the schools capital plan that seeks Cabinet approval to invest in our schools this coming year. As a Cabinet, we are committed to giving our children the best start in life. And this commitment is not just about excellent teaching and support, but making sure we have the best buildings we can afford to educate our children in. And to do this, it's important that we continue to invest in our schools to ensure that they are safe and provide the best facilities for our children. As Cabinet will have seen, the list of schools that we are investing is substantial. And this is the case every year. And I'm always very impressed by the amount of work that is undertaken over the school holidays by council officers and our trade staff. I would like to thank them in advance for the work and commitment in getting these important works carried out, as I'm sure they will, as in previous years, they will deliver this programme over the summer holidays. Chair, I ask Cabinet to approve this report.
I second that report. Councillor John Lawson wants to talk on this spot. John, over to you.
Thank you. Just finding my unmute button there. So yes, thanks for that that brief introduction. I just got a question about the table on 2.6, page 105 of the pack, the public pack. We have in there that the lion's share of the money, 3.149 million, urgent condition need-based projects and health and safety works. I'd just ask a question on, once this money is spent, will our schools, or will all of our schools be up to date in terms of compliance and health and safety? Thanks.
Graham, do you want to answer that, please?
Yes, they should be. That's the plan this year, to get these up to date. Having said that, don't forget, legislation changed post Grenfell, and you never know, it may change again once that inquiry finishes its runs its due course. But yes, I'm confident they will all be finished this summer and be up to standard. But as I say, legislation may change post Grenfell. Who knows?
Thank you, John. You got any more questions?
Yeah, I do have a supplementary. We also talked in that report about one of the risks being slippage, and you know, it's with that kind of expenditure and those kinds of projects, it's a very ambitious task. It's almost guaranteed that there's going to be some kind of slippage in there at some point. So what do we have in terms of contingency planning for return to school after, because most of this work is in the summer holidays, so returning to school after the summer holidays, and prioritizing the compliance and the health and safety aspects in that work. So if you could just explain a little bit about that. Thank you.
Well, like any project, John, there's always a likelihood of slippage, but traditionally they've done a fantastic job over the summer, and they get these projects done. They do an awful lot of prep work and make sure that they have a timescale that they can work to. And if there is any slippage, to try and identify that as early as possible. There is just the possibility this year that it may be a little bit more difficult, because obviously some things are a little bit short supply, although they think that supply chain seems to be coming back into its own now. But there will be a contingency plan, should there be any slippage, to ensure that our children are back in September, back in the classroom, getting the best education we can provide for them.
Thank you, Graham. John, any more questions?
No, just a comment that Graham's quite right. Resources are in scarce supply. I've been looking for bags of plaster recently, and they're about £30 a piece online. So, no chance of my house getting done recently. So, yeah, we'll probably face the same challenges in council. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrea. Can we go for the vote, please? I second that report. I think I've already said that. Can we go for the vote? You want to do a roll call, please? Again, we'll just do a roll call.
Thanks. Councillor Pandor.
4.
Councillor Kendrick. 4. Councillor Calm.
4.
Councillor Mather.
4.
Councillor McBride. Councillor McBride.
Peter, you're on mute. You might be on mute. You have to unmute yourself. Peter. Peter's in the red box. He's
on mute.
Peter, you have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you, Peter. Do you want to unmute yourself, please? You're still on mute, Peter. Peter, put your hand up. Do you agree with that report? Just put your hand up like that. Yeah, thank you. Right, that'll do.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Scott.
4.
Councillor Turner.
4.
Councillor Walker.
4.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, members. We'll move on to the next item, which is Huddersfield Town Centre Blueprint Supplementary Planning Document. Councillor Peter McBride to present. Peter, over to you. No, he's not muted. He's okay now. Yeah, no, he's not muted.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Peter.
Yes.
And you're in the red box as well. So our broadband's come up back.
The supplementary planning document is not a change in plan for the town centre, but it can be unique on purchase order to refine and provide detail of its intent. Puts in place a vision for the town centre for the next 12 years. It's a strategic guide growth in Huddersfield Town Centre. It's flexible enough to accommodate modifications, but provides clarity about the main location and thrust of policy. It provides a framework and guidance for investment by the council, its partners, and other investors. And it puts a framework around investment proposals and provides both clarity and flexibility to enable our vision for the town to be achieved and delivered. I've proposed, Chair.
Thank you. I second that. But before we go to the vote, I've got two councillors wanting to speak. So I'll bring in Councillor John Taylor in, and then John Lawson. So John Taylor, over to you, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Firstly, I just want to record my sort of support, I guess, for the document. I think it's a very well written document, and a lot of work has clearly gone into that. So credit for the officers that have been involved in that. I think it does flow well and it does read well. There's always a but though, isn't there? There's always a but. If I have a number of comments on specific pages, but I'll just whiz through them. And you'll get a theme. On page 199, which is, I'm just trying to get to it. 199. Unfortunately, I don't have a paper copy, so please. So, it's a different page number now. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm not worried about the page number. We talk about a regional hub in terms of the rail station, and it talks about as having faster links between Manchester, Bradford, and Leeds. My first comment really is faster than what? So I just think we perhaps if they're altering, redrafting, we just probably want to think about that sentence because it doesn't quite make sense. But then there's no reference to Sheffield. We talk about Manchester, we talk about Bradford, we talk about Leeds. Once again, no reference to Sheffield or the Penistone line. On page 206, we talk about our ambitions, but again, no mention of the Penistone line. Page 219, we talk about upgrading our transport networks. Again, no mention of the Penistone line. Page 227, when we talk about transport regional connections, still no mention of Sheffield, Barnsley or the Penistone line. And finally, page 242 talks about welcome to Huddersfield at the station, but that welcome isn't very welcoming from the south of the borough because again, no reference or mention to the Penistone line. I raised this when we last talked about this blueprint back in February, March, might have even been January, when we were actually all meeting in the council chamber. And Peter, you gave commitment that, you know, you do talk about the Penistone line, you make sure that the Penistone line is mentioned where appropriate. We've got an entire document here and there's no reference or mention to it anywhere. And I've been through it line by line. And I can't express how disappointed I am that I keep bringing this up time and time and time and time again. And every time I get given confirmation that it is important to us, it is part of the transport infrastructure for the town, it is relevant. But again, we've got another wonderful document and no mention of it.
Peter?
John, I think it's a valid comment. I too am concerned about the Penistone line. I think it's not an unreasonable criticism. I think at all points West Yorkshire understates the importance of that line. And I've simply got to say, in this regard, with this document, mea culpa, I think we should put it right. I agree with you, John.
To be fair, I think that was only 3 months ago.
Yes, I know.
So what we'll do is, can we just put in a reference on the recommendation that the report should also make reference throughout to the Penistone line, and also look back and forth to the Sheffield City region, because John's right, we've got Manchester City region, you know, which is a massive combined authority that we look into. There's our own West Yorkshire Combined Authority, but we've also got another one on to the side facing south on the Penistone line. So can we just put an additional recommendation in the Andrea? Is that okay? So we can
the same point, roughly speaking, is made from members in Calderdale who point out their important links to Manchester, which are almost invariably ignored by all people in West Yorkshire. It's a valid comment. We tend to look inwards and not consider those significant routes which lead outwards, the outer part, beyond West Yorkshire immediately. I think it's something we should really address. I remember one of the first iterations of these documents, it didn't include any reference or map which would include the Penistone line, which was diabolical.
Yeah, so Andrea,
I've been banging on about this for a couple of years now, that we're looking east west all the time. We don't look north south, and we're feeling a bit unloved out here.
Yeah, and no, you're spot on, John. When we come to the report approval, we'll put in some word in there, and before we take the vote. Okay, have we got any more questions, John? No, thanks a lot. John Lawson, Councillor John Lawson.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions, really. Given some of the high-profile cases in London about residential elements being introduced to town centre locations, how are we going to balance the conflicting priorities of new residents in the town centre and the nighttime economy? Because what we've seen in the past, excuse me, in city centres, is residents being introduced to town centre locations and coming into almost immediate conflict with long-standing venues, for music venues and clubs, etc. So I've asked this again for, you know, like John before me, I've been asking this for a couple of years, and I've gone around this loop a few times. So it'd be interesting just to see how we use our supplementary planning document, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. I do like the supplementary planning document. It's one of the good things that we do in Kirklees. So how are we just going to balance those? Thank you.
I think our major problem within Kirklees is what we say about a period between about 5 o'clock and 7 or 8 o'clock. Our towns are dead at that period. We really have to do something to keep something interesting and active within that period. So far, honestly, we haven't succeeded. I think we've got to think much more of what we can do for what I would call that kind of intermediate, in time terms, intermediate economy. And I mean the early evening. And I think some of the developments of routeways, Cross Church Street, on the links between the station and the bus station, and the links on New Street, will do something for that. But I think we need a much wider consideration of what we can develop and keep between 5 and 7 or 8 o'clock. They're key times for keeping our town thriving. It must be added, the same problem Dewsbury has, Halifax has, and all the other towns, even including Bradford, all apart from Leeds. Having said that, the problem I think we still have to address to keep our towns viable.
Thank you,
Peter.
Thanks for that answer. Just to come back through you, Leader, I'm really concerned that actually what might happen is that we might start introducing residential units close by to live venues and clubs, and the two will come into conflict in terms of noise issues. And the first thing that residents tend to do is to get together, quite rightly, because that's how you get things done, and then try and get the clubs shut down or the venues shut down. So that's kind of what I'm driving at there.
I think if I think back to some 30 years ago, Huddersfield was a lot more vibrant 30 years ago, and there wasn't such a conflict, but it was certainly livable with, and certainly the what should we say, the younger community, the older community were able to live in reasonable harmony. I just wish we had the opportunity to address that immediate problem now.
Thank you, Peter. John, any more?
Yeah, just a separate question. I've
Yes.
as we've gone through, I've had a couple of group members come to me with questions about the town centre plan and the SPD, and I think there's a theme coming through about accessibility and disabled drivers, and how we ensure that they're not kind of locked out of things like the railway station and access to that kind of transport.
Well, I think we've got to be always conscious of people who've got any kind of handicap or impediment. I think it's true of all West Yorkshire towns. I don't think we are our town's particularly problematic on that count. And I think that's also true of Dewsbury. We must always do more to ensure that all of our major venues are reasonably accessible. I do take your point.
Thank you, Peter. John, any more?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, okay, so before we go to the vote, I just want to, sorry, I've got Councillor Rob Walker who wants to. Rob, do you want to come in? You have to just talk, we can't use the video.
Yeah, it was just really to add a little bit to Peter's answer about the noise from venues and potentially clashing with residential development. It has been taken on board by the culture team. They've looked at this. They are conscious of the fact there could potentially be problems there, and it is something that we will try to feed into the planning process. So we are aware of it, and I think it's a good point. Thanks, John. Thank you.
Okay, before we go to the vote, Andrea, what we will need to do is just amend the recommendation slightly. So before 7.3, I think we need to put 7.2A-B, 7.2 and 7.2B or A, and put in the word in that cabinet also minded and would like to know that the Pennine line, the Penistone line, is an important part of the infrastructure of Kirklees, and Huddersfield Master Plan will reflect this, and it's an important part of the rail infrastructure of Kirklees, and it's important for the wider city region, both in terms of accessibility and economic regeneration. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that recommendation addition, Andrea, do you want to take us through the roll call for the voting, please?
Yeah, I think we're just doing audio again. I'm Councillor Pandor.
Yes, for.
Councillor Kendrick. For. Councillor Khan.
For.
Councillor Mather.
For.
Councillor McBride.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
Excuse me, for.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Turner.
For.
Councillor Walker.
For.
Thanks, Chair.
We've got the two additional items that I spoke about earlier on. So the first item we've taken is the discretionary grants fund. Councillor Turner, do you want to present this, please?
Yeah, I presume we're doing audio only. So, Chair, thank you. This is the emergency report into the new discretionary grant scheme for small businesses. I'm not keen on bringing emergency reports, but in this case, it's very important as jobs and livelihoods could well be at stake. As we well know, the government offers support to SMEs in the form of a rates grant payment. However, some types of businesses were ineligible for this scheme, and the government has launched the Local Authority Discretionary Grants Fund, or the LADGF. God, that rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? To help address some of the gaps in the existing support programme. So 5.244 million has been allocated for businesses in Kirklees. This report seeks Cabinet approval to establish the scheme, including the eligibility criteria for applicants and the grant amounts to be awarded. Just need to explain the legalities of this report. Point 1. The legal power for the council to make payments on the Local Discretionary Grant Fund scheme is Section 1 of the Localism Act 2011, commonly known as the General Power of Competence. Point 2. As with any discretionary power, this must be exercised reasonably in accordance with the council's public law duties, i.e. in a manner which is rational for proper purpose and have regard to relevant and ignoring irrelevant considerations. Members should give full consideration to all matters in the report and ensure they are content that the proposals are an appropriate response to the government guidance on the grant fund issued on the 13th of May 2020. In 2.6 of the report, members will have seen the government publish guidance for local authorities on the operation of the scheme. The guidance is clear that the government is setting some national criteria for the funds, but allowing local authorities to determine which cases to support within those criteria. It further notes that local authorities should prioritise the following types of businesses / charities for support through the LADGF. Small businesses in shared offices or other flexible workspaces. Examples could include units in industrial parks, science parks and incubators which do not have their own business rates assessment. Regular market traders with fixed building costs such as rent who do not have their own business rates assessment. Bed and breakfasts which pay council tax instead of business rates, and charity properties in receipt of charitable business rates relief which should otherwise have been eligible for small business rates relief or rural rate relief. After much discussion with officers and cabinet members and neighbouring authorities, I came to the conclusion that whilst this is a discretionary scheme, that we should use the government guidance for the allocation of the money. And I accept that even this new scheme might miss some worthy businesses. However, to draw up our own scheme would have taken too long and still might not have captured everyone. The need for struggling businesses is now, hence the need to bring this report today. The application of 5.2 million will take a bit longer than the previous scheme, as it requires certain information that we don't hold and some detailed checks and balances. But we will ensure that we get the money out to those who qualify as soon as possible. Should there be any money left in the pot, which I don't think there will, then in that case we will use our discretionary powers to allocate it. We will spend all this money one way or another, as maintaining the local economy as best we can is vital for our residents. In particular, members should consider whether proposed eligibility criteria are appropriate in the light of this information, and if so, that they be applied consistently to applicants. The scheme could be challenged by judicial review if this were not the case. If members are content that the proposals are an appropriate response to the government's guidance, and in my view and officers they are, then the scheme should be approved. Just to advise that government have issued updated guidance on Saturday, just before the bank holiday, which state that businesses eligible for the self-employment support scheme can now also apply for the discretionary grant. Previously they could not apply. As with many things connected with this pandemic guidance, etc., changes frequently and we react accordingly. If further changes come about, we will use officers' delegated powers after discussion with myself to implement them. Chair, I ask Cabinet to approve this report.
Thanks, Graham. I'd like to second that, but just a few quick points before I bring other members in. Firstly, this is a scheme, but the guidance is still very much focused from central government. So although it's called a discretionary funding scheme, the guidelines are still very, very clear from central government. Also, the other point to mention is there will still be some businesses that will fall between the cracks, because this is not an endless pot of money. The money is limited to 5.2 4 million or just over 5 million quid. That money is not enough, like Graham says. You know, we will definitely use that money. So, you know, I welcome the report, but it will not be a fix to how every single business will be able to benefit from this. So I'll now invite Councillor, is it John Taylor? John Taylor, do you want to come in, John?
Yeah, thank you, Shabir. Just a quick one, really. Firstly, I welcome the report, welcome the continued commitment by the government to provide some funding, and I fully take Graham and your own comments that this may prove not to be as much as we could easily provide out in grant funding, but you know, there are always limits. My question really is, one of the concerns with the previous grant scheme that we had was the speed at which the money was got out to the businesses that were applying, and in part that was because we chose to use BACS rather than doing bank transfers, which would move between bank accounts on the same day. Just asking, and I did ask this last time, could we try and do them where we do it with an immediate transfer rather than a 3-day process? Because you're right that some of these businesses are absolutely desperate for this money. Thank you.
Thanks. Graham, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, we can certainly look at that, John. We looked at it last time, and it didn't really stack up. I don't think. I can't remember the exact reason, but we didn't do it last time. You're right. This will, as I said earlier, business need to be aware this will be a little bit slower than the last one, because we won't have the information that we need, and there are more checks and balances expected by government. But we will, I promise, we will get this money out there as quick as we humanly can. And if it's viable not to do it through bank transfer, then we will have a look at it. But I promise we'll have a look at it, see how it goes. But it didn't, with the amount of payments last time, it was just easy to go through backs, to be fair with you. But we will have a look at it, no problem. Okay.
Yeah, and just to add to that, John, for information, Nadeem Zahawi, who's the minister responsible for this part of the world, the business grants, he actually did ring all local authorities that were on paper looking like they were starting off a bit slow. When he rang us, I asked for the details behind the headlines, and in fact we were actually outperforming a lot of local authorities. It's how the data was actually captured and communicated. So after we communicated back to him saying that we actually on the upper quartile in terms of our performance, he actually said, yeah, carry on the good work, and he was very apologetic that, you know, he got the wrong information. So although there was some negative publicity, we were actually one of the better councils that were actually performing on this, and I'm sure with the new criteria it'll be as good.
I was picking it up from businesses who were desperate for the money.
Yeah,
not from national publicity or anything. I think we just need to get the money out as quickly as we can. But I wasn't critical of what we did.
No, I understand that.
But get it out there as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and I didn't. Let me clarify. I didn't mean you're being critical, John. But there was some reverse publicity, and when we drilled down, it wasn't as bad in terms of performance as it was first made out. But you're right. A lot of businesses have contacted me, and I'm sure they've contacted other councillors as well. Any business that's actually ringing or not ringing needs this money, and I think Graham made the point that we will get this money out as quickly as possible, but it's public money and we've got to do some kind of balance and checking. But your point's well made, John. Thanks very much. Okay, members, is there any more questions? There's nobody else indicated. Shall we do another roll call now? Oh, so Councillor Lawson, do you want to say something?
Want to come in on the next item?
Oh, it's the next item. Sorry. Speak on the item 10 before private. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, John, you got the next item. Okay. So shall we take the vote on this then? Andrea, do you want to?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. I'm Councillor Pando.
Change the scheme.
Yeah, I think Greg made it very clear in terms of any changes to this that might have to come into force is delegated to Graham in consultation with the directors and officers. But because this is such a fast-moving area, and we want to make sure our businesses actually survive, we don't want to keep on coming to cabinet every 2 weeks, because 2 weeks is too late for a lot of people. So we understand that. So on that basis, yes, Andrea, I'm okay with that report. 4.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Kendrick.
4.
Councillor Khan.
4.
Councillor Mather.
4.
Councillor McBride.
4,
Councillor Patterson,
4.
Councillor Scott,
4.
Councillor Turner,
4.
Councillor Walker.
4.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. So we've all agreed to that report. Can we now take the final report before we go into private session? Councillor Muscan, a report on support to the adult social care providers. Mus, over to you.
I've had to wait for the red thing. Or
No, I think what they've done is
yeah,
Peter's.
I'll just do it like this. Okay. Right.
We're just getting. They made a note somewhere that due to the tech issues, we will be keeping the leader in view and doing audio only. Now, I'm not even in view. I think Peter's in view. So what I don't know what's happened there, but we having broadband connectivity issues. Our IT is working okay, but it's some connectivity issues. So besides Peter,
Right.
everybody is on audio. Okay, Moses.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pandor, for receiving this report as urgent. The government recently announced the Adult Social Care Infection Control Fund, and Kirklees is to be allocated just over £4.5 million. And this is the first funding to councils specifically for adult social care, and is in addition to the council's previously agreed package of support. The overall objective of this fund is to support adult social care providers to reduce the rate of COVID-19 transmission in care homes and between one care home and another, and to support other workforce actions necessary to deliver infection control. This funding is ring-fenced exclusively for actions which support care homes and domiciliary care providers to tackle the risk of COVID-19 infections. And as I've mentioned in previous meetings, the care sector is facing continued pressures due to COVID-19. And this funding is to be paid in 2 instalments in June and July, and local authorities should pass 70% of the funding straight to care homes within the local authority's geographical area on a per beds basis, and that includes care providers with whom the local authority doesn't have existing contracts. The remaining 25% must be used for infection control measures, and the local authority has the discretion to target the allocation of the remaining 25% of both months' funding based on need. And given the very tight timescales, we would request that powers of delegation be given to the Strategic Director of Health and Care in consultation with the Council Section 151 officer and myself, the Cabinet Member of Adults and Health, on how this 25% part of the funding will be allocated. And I recommend that the proposals in this paper be supported in order to ensure that the Council can continue to support local providers, and that Cabinet agrees to receive a subsequent report that sets out the issues facing the adult social care provider sector and support provider to date, including decisions taken under delegated powers.
Okay, I second that report. Is there any questions from anybody? I don't think there is, Richard. No. Okay, shall we go for a roll call, please? Andrea, do you want to do a roll call, please, again?
Thanks. Councillor Pandor.
Yes, 4.
Councillor Kendrick. 4. Councillor Khan.
4.
Councillor Mather.
4.
Councillor McBride.
4.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Scott.
4.
Councillor Turner.
4.
Councillor Walker.
4.
Carried, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We come on to the last item on the agenda, which is item 10, disposal of land at Kenmore Drive, Cleckheaton. There's an item under item 12 as well, which is in a private session. But can I ask, just show of hands, I'm assuming that you've all read the report that's in private session, yes? So can we, who's doing this item, disposal of land at Kenmore Drive? Kathy? Yeah, Kathy, over to you.
Yeah, I don't. Thank you, Chair. I don't need to remind everybody that there is a housing crisis across the country, as well as Kirklees, and one of the areas of need is more specialist accommodation and housing. Overall, we have 1,730 new homes a year required in this area in Kirklees alone, and of that 1,049 are affordable. There is a specific need in the future for extra care. That could be through the private rent and also to sell. And it's about allowing people to keep their independence within their own homes in these extra care facilities. Now, Kirklees can't do it on its own. It needs to look further afield, working in partnership with other organisations. So this report that comes before Cabinet is to consider the objections that we've received as a result of advertising the council's intention to dispose of the council-owned open space site at Kenmore Drive. It also asks for Cabinet's approval to dispose of the site to Housing 21 at a less than best consideration to deliver an 80-bed extra care facility for affordable rent homes. There is one written objection that's been received on behalf of 8 people. Their objection is based on how any development in this land would affect the stability of a retaining wall, but it does not mention the potential loss of open space. This can be dealt with at the planning stage. And there's other matters that were raised within this report, but that equally can be brought up at the planning stage. And it's just a reminder to Cabinet on the 29th of August 2018, Cabinet approved a report on our approach to the delivery of the growth element of the housing strategy. With its guide. Cabinet was also received a report on the 20th of January 2020 on the housing delivery plan site, and included in that was Kenmore Drive. While members have been consulted and have been fully engaged in this, what's been going on in that area, they've also visited Housing 21, the extra care scheme in Doncaster. That gave them a better understanding, which was really good that the ward members did engage to have a look at it. I ask Cabinet today to support this recommendation as set out in part 6.1 to 6.5 with the option D, direct land disposal of housing to Housing 21, which is a not-for-profit organisation. It's a specialist partner that provides extra care specialist facilities. I move this report.
Okay, I'd like to second that. John, do you want to come in?
Thank you. Yes, and thanks for that introduction to the report, Councillor Scott. As you'll know, this is actually in my ward, and I was one of those members who went to see the Housing 21 development over in Doncaster. It was very high quality. I was very impressed, I have to say. It will be a benefit to the ward and to the people in the ward and to the people in the surrounding area. The site has been passed for planning, has been in the planning allocation, housing allocation, in this plan, in the last plan, and possibly the plan before it. So when it came to planning committee, I think it was last year or the year before, and it had the existing planning application that it has now, I voted against that. I didn't vote against it because it had stopped building on the site. I voted against it because it wasn't a proper use. It was too intense to have just a regular residential development on there. But working with Councillor Kendrick at the time, it was assessed for the proposed use. And I think that's probably the best kind of use we're going to get on that land, and welcome it. So, because I take a point, there is a desperate need for that kind of housing. There's just a couple of things I'd ask, though. Along with the retaining wall that was mentioned, I know that is a concern, and I get that that's a planning issue and would happen at the planning stage. So I'll be paying particular attention to that. But along with those, I'd ask that we look at closely at a couple of things. So can we please look at the massing of the building? Again, this will be at a planning issue, a planning stage, and make sure it doesn't dominate the surrounding houses, because that at the moment it's an open aspect, and if it's a 3-4 story building, one block, it's gonna be a real big impact on the surrounding houses. I'd also ask that the parcel of land at the moment, as I understand it, it's split into two. with the south side being developed and the north side being left open, which is actually quite a good saving of that open land. What I'd ask is for us to look into options to protect that land for future use, just for future amenity, really, both of the new residents of that development and of their existing neighbours. So those are my comments. So if we could please look at those last two items that I mentioned in particular.
Yeah, can I just come in there, John? I'm mindful that we are approving the report, and we don't want to stray into the territory of what the planning committee will do. So I think, we hear what you're saying, but I don't want to make any more comments on that. We will leave it to planning committee to look at the issues around the retaining wall, like you quite rightly said, and also in terms of the massing, because that's all about density, and the option about the other thing what you talked about. And I'm sure, because what I don't want to do is there are members on this cabinet who are also members of planning, and I don't want to put that decision-making process into any kind of doubt. So that's why I came in. I'm sure members will agree. Are you okay with that, John?
Of course, but I would just ask in private session, would you bear in mind the protection of the remaining land as well? And that kind of falls outside planning.
Yeah. So what we've done is I made it clear that has all members read the report, which is a private report, which they have done. So with that in mind, we then move back into, we didn't go into private session because members are fully updated and briefed on the private element. So we're now going to go to the vote. And Cathy, do you want to say anything, mindful of what this committee is and what the other committees? But I'll give you last.
No, I think what you said is absolutely right. And as I did point out before, their matters can be dealt with at the planning stage. And rather than compromise any members that are on the planning committee, I think what you said is absolutely right. So I just moved this and you've seconded it, Shabir. So. And
so shall we go for the vote now? Andrea, do you want to take us through the roll?
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Pandor.
4.
Councillor Kendrick.
4.
Councillor Khan.
4.
Councillor Mather.
4.
Councillor McBride.
4.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Scott.
4.
Councillor Turner.
4.
Councillor Walker.
4.
Carried, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody for taking the part, asking questions, and cabinet members for also presenting the reports. We've been nearly 2 hours. It's been a long meeting, but once again, I thank you all for taking part. Thank you very much, and good night, and speak to you soon. Bye bye.